Hello, it's AL-BINO again. I'm going to do another video because there's a couple things that I wanted to, or meant to discuss, but didn't on my last one because I was in a hurry to get somewhere. So, let's ask the question, shall we? If World War II were to happen today, would we have been able, or would we be able to do what we did in the 1940s and produce to victory? Wars are not won always by the number of people you kill or by tactics on the battlefield. They are, but they're not. That's the tactical side, right? Wars are won, be they kinetic wars or economic wars, on the factory floor. World War II proved this. The Germans had an advantage and were able to project as far as they were on European soil, and the Japanese in the Pacific, until they ran into the factory floor of the British, the Americans, and to a smaller effect, the Russians, right? So, the question is whether or not, if World War II were to happen today, would we be able to win? The answer is no. Yes, I know we have a little bit more advanced technology today, but largely the technology today between the 1940s and present, while it is slightly more advanced, it's pretty much the same infrastructure-wise as it was then, but we've fine-tuned the technology, if more or less, right? So, given that, if the United States were to be put in a situation like it was in the 1940s, there's no possible way we could be victorious. And why is that? Because war is won on the factory floor. This is why, another reason why, Donald Trump, you need to arrest, prosecute, and execute Democrats. And like I've said in my last video, at this point in time, we've already sussed out, like, the Democrats that were in the Democrat Party previously, but they were Democrats, like the old Union type Democrats and stuff. They've left. So the Democrats now are the enemy party of the United. So you need to go from top to bottom, in the government, out of the government, private industry, the hippie Karen next door. And you need to start rounding these people up and executing them, because they are enemies of this country. And because of the fascist boomer policies over the last 50 years that have exported the core of our infrastructure, manufacturing infrastructure, not only from a jobs point of view, but from a national defense point of view. Even if we weren't fighting a World War II scale type conflict, but let's say that we were engaged in a Cold War type contest, which in a way we kind of are, with the Chinese and with what they would call the BRICS nations. The only way we beat the Soviets was because even until the 1980s, we still had most of what we had in the 1940s here. They were starting to farm a lot of that stuff out, but for the most part it was still. So, not just that Americans could have good jobs, but we were able to be self-sufficient and overproduce or outproduce a potential foe. Okay? So, hold on just a second. I actually got to get some fuel, go outside, get some cigarettes. You guys are going to come with me. So, Mr. Trump, you need to come hard like Pinochet, just like I said before, and you need to start arresting these people and making examples of them. And maybe if enough of them are tried and put in prison and executed for treason, the message will get out that this is not acceptable, it will not be tolerated, and others will correct themselves in due course. Okay? But Boomernomics has to stop. This fighting these tariffs that are temporarily going to be painful, but in the long run are going to be beneficial, has to stop. And if it doesn't stop organically, it needs to be forced to stop. Alien Sedition Act, you keep talking about it, Donald. 1798. You need to enforce it. You need to go through voter rolls. You need to police up governors like Paulus and Grisham and mayors like Mayor Keller in Albuquerque and that dumbass mayor in Los Angeles, and they need to be made an example of. Period. And they need the gas. They need lethal injections. After they're convicted, of course. Hold on just a second. That's what needs to happen. Because we are in a, for real, not just a economic crisis, but for real national security crisis. Because if we were to face something like that, for real, there's no way. We are not the arsenal of democracy like we were in the 40s, or even the 50s and 60s, or the 80s, when we beat back the Soviets without having to fire a shot. That's why the boomers are the enemy. Because they deliberately, as soon as Reagan left office, they deliberately started taking apart what worked. Okay? Hold on a second. They started taking it apart. Okay. So not only did they hurt us economically and hurt families and men and all that other stuff. See, this was by design. Remember, this is the same generation that was brought up by the Saul Alinsky's of the world. Remember Hillary Clinton, her hero was Saul Alinsky. Those were radicals. This was deliberate. These people did this on purpose. So now they need to be made an example of, or the country will fall. Let's see. Let's get some cigarettes. There you go. Close. I got a pack of Lucky Strike Menthol 100s, please. I got my ID on me, thank you. Good man.
You have a phone number with us?
No, I don't.
763. Would you like a receipt?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too. All right, going back to the truck. All right. Nice and warm in the truck. So now I gotta take off. Well, I'll keep the hoodie on. I'll just turn the heater off. If I pull this hoodie up, you guys are gonna see my pasty white belly. It's getting smaller though. But anyways, yeah, that's we have to deal with this forcefully. Now, Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan faced a slightly smaller challenge in the early years of his presidency with the air traffic controller strike. And the way that he dealt with this was it needs to be the same template that Trump follows. So what happens? Air traffic controllers, which are federal employees, by the way, and this is why even progressives of the 1930s and 40s, like Franklin Delano Roosevelt, were opposed to government employees being members of unions, because the SEIU, which is a service industry union, but it is the largest government employee union in the country, ordered the air traffic controllers to strike. And Reagan was trying, he wasn't going to cut their pay, but he was not going to give them the pay increase and the goodies that they wanted, or not the FAA wasn't, because they were trying at that time to somehow manage the budget. Reagan got beat budget-wise on a lot of things, but anyways, dumbass boomer driver. That guy didn't cross the road until, yes. So they went ahead and went on strike. Now, the problem is not only did that threaten, at the time, commercial air traffic, but it, people getting on planes and passenger air travel, but it threatened military air travel. It threatened, like the mail, so business air travel, and not business air travel like, I get on a plane and get business class. No, it's like DHL, Federal Express, the mail. Remember, the airlines got started not with passenger traffic, but with airmail. But yeah, so it was an infrastructure critical problem that they were threatening the national security of the United States. So they went ahead and did this, and Reagan said, guess what? If you don't report to work tomorrow and this strike goes on, you're all fired. And he fired every single one of them. And then he went back and he said, okay, now we've got a national security problem. He said, here's the deal. You're going to report back to work, and you're going to accept the terms at the FAA as federal employees and national security assets that we give you, or you're going to be arrested and prosecuted for treason. Guess what? the air traffic controller strike was over with, everybody went back to work and the system worked. Okay, this is what Donald Trump, you cannot negotiate with these people anymore. And if they don't cooperate with you, you do like Reagan said he was going to do with the air traffic controllers. It's that fucking simple. Okay? And Reagan had a much nicer disposition than you. But he didn't fuck around, at least with stuff like this. And it worked. So, Donald, you have to do this. And if you don't do it, then you lied to your supporters, you lied to the American people, and you need to step down. And then, of course, once that happens, we either need to put somebody in place who will do your job, like you promised, or we'll balkanize and do, like I said, is going to happen last week by 2040. Donald, if you don't turn this around quickly, if you do not put your fist down, which you have every legal right to do, everything I said in last week's video will happen. And did you ever think that maybe Elon's getting ready to quit, not just because he's got death threats against him, but also because he sees or detects that he's now brought everything for you to the table and given you everything that you need to act on to go after these people and go after these programs and start being the man, the Pinochet that we elected you to be. Or he's going to be like, you know what, I'm wasting my time. I've got people threatening my life and my family and everything else. And I'm showing you all this and you're talking about it, but nothing's happening. You know what, I quit. You know, maybe that's why. And if he walks away from your team, we're screwed. You need to act, because right now, if we were faced with a World War II, we can't. We don't have the manufacturing infrastructure to do it. And it would take us so long to get it stood up. See, in the 1930s and 1940s, we were coming out of a depression, but those factories, even though some of them were either shuttered or diminished, they were still there. Those companies were still in this country. So, yeah, it took them a couple years to spin up, but they didn't have to go rebuild everything. If anything, some of it was maybe, temporarily shut down or minimized, but it was still here. Now, a lot of that stuff has left, and it's been gone for decades, and it's going to take a while to stand it back up. So, yeah, your job is to be the asshole, and we're going to do this, and you people are going to cooperate, and the people that stand against this, if you don't knock it off, you are national security threats, you are enemies in this country, and if you don't stop, you're going to prison as traitors, and will be executed. From the hippie lady on the street all the way up to the white collar folks on the left. Every one of them need to be open for this type of action. And if not, then you are not who you say you are, Donald Trump. You're just a windbag and a pussy. And this is AL-BINO signing out.